was 18 years old, I met a boy. He was 19, and I was infatuated. He didn't talk to me because he was infatuated. So we spent the next 3 years awkwardly avoiding each other until he came to one of my shows, and he asked me out for ice cream. And we went on a date, and I decided that I would probably keep him around. And that December, he said, "For your birthday, I want to buy you a ticket to go see your dad." I hadn't spent a birthday with my father since I was 5. My parents divorced, and it just didn't work out. That's when I decided I probably loved him. And so we went. We went down to Texas, and we saw my dad. And he's the only man that I'd ever brought to meet my father. So for me, it was a big deal. For him, it was probably bigger. And they got along really, really well. We went to San Antonio, spent some time in South Padre Island, which is my happy place. It was my dad's happy place. The next May, I believe, we went down again. And we got to the airport, flew out through Minneapolis, got to Chicago, and they said, "You're not flying out of this airline today." I said, "Why?" And we looked up at the screen, and everywhere over Nebraska was red. Nope, not flying. So ourselves and about 600-700 other people had to wait in line. We were given tickets with numbers, and if they called your number, you got to go on a plane and eventually route to your destination. And they called our number, and we went up to the gate, and we looked at this attendant who was maybe 17. I said, "Oh, yeah, we're really lucky. I'm excited." He's like, "Yeah, you are lucky." And I said, "Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, it's taking about 3 hours longer, but we're going." And he said, "No, you're really lucky. You're flying first class." And the tears started rolling down my face, and he kind of looked at me, and I hadn't told anyone that we were flying down for my dad's funeral. And we got on this plane, and the attendant came over, and she's gorgeous. She leans over, and she looks at me, and I think she can tell something's just off. She goes, "Honey, what do you want to drink?" And I'm not accustomed to first class, so I go, "Oh, what can I have?" And she goes, "No, honey, what do you want?" So I had 3 Jack and Cokes before we taxied. And you can imagine the rest of the flight. I was enthralled with the fact that we had real glasses and silverware. So there's me tinking my silverware together, and people in the other row rolling their eyes at me. But we got down to Texas, and we met up with my family. And 2 months prior, I had been down with my dad. I had provided his last 2 weeks of his life. I was his caretaker. So he went from being my dad to being in a box on the bed in a gift bag with tissue paper, which struck me as particularly odd that you would gift wrap a... It's not a very nice present. So in my father's will, he had left me his vehicle. So we drove his ashes down to South Padre Island, and a family friend took us out on his boat, and we let him go into the Gulf of Mexico. I have it tattooed, the latitude and longitude, where he is. And we had to drive back. South Padre Island is really far south. It's about 20 minutes north of Mexico. North Dakota is really far north. That's a really long road trip. And I was with Mitch, and we kind of planned it out that we'd break it up in stages and, take 4 days to take this trip. And we spent the better part of 10 hours trying to get out of Texas. Texas is a lot bigger than you think Texas is. We gave up and spent the first night in Texas, and all we wanted was a drink. So we went and got a can of pineapple juice and Malibu and realized we had no utensil to open the can and scared the bejesus out of the hostess by asking her for a really big knife. We did get it open. We eventually went through Nebraska, and I don't know if any of you have spent time driving in Nebraska, but it is all mostly highways that you have to pay to get off, pay to get back on. Everything else is islands of McDonald's. Got through Nebraska. I think it was in Nebraska that we found the really weird, off-the-road, hillbilly petting zoo. Yeah! Oh, yeah! That one. They only have one. Just one. So we drove all the way up through. We wanted to camp. This should be an easy process. We got a little tent. We got a sleeping bag. And we spent 3.5 hours trying to find the campsite. By the time we got to the campsite, it was dark, so we couldn't camp. Everything is just slowly going wrong. But we got through it, and we drove all the way back home. He took me home. And it was when we hit the border of North Dakota that I wondered if our radio stations were coming back in yet, and I realized we hadn't had the radio on the entire drive. It was just him and me and these really weird happenstances. That's when I decided I was going to marry him. He had the same idea, apparently, but it took him 2 more years for me to be ready to go back to my island. So he brought me. He brought me home. He asked me. I said yes. We're getting married in December. So he's my home. He's my happy place. Thanks, guys.